Welcome back to Legends Live, as presented by the National Basketball Retired Players Association. This is the home of all our NBA and WNBA legends. I'd like to remind the viewers that you can submit questions during the during the show that we will get to afterwards. Submit your questions in the chat. We will get to that before the end of the show. Without any further ado, I'd like to welcome in our guest today. We have got former St. John Red Storm, former Golden State Warrior, two-time Olympic gold medalist, and another member of the Dream Team. We have Chris Mullin with us today. Chris, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure, Tyler. Glad to be with you, and look forward to chatting, talking up some hoops.
Definitely. First things first, how are you? I'd like to ask people, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Obviously, there's so much going on in the world. Fortunately, at my age, a lot of things that you're not supposed to do, I don't do anymore. So I kind of live my life in a bubble anyway. But just my prayers and thoughts. Everybody's going through a tough time. Just my prayers and thoughts with everybody out there.
Definitely.
And stay healthy during the holidays and wear your mask and do the right thing.
Yes. Now, as I mentioned, I spoke to another Dream Team member, spoke to Charles Barkley last week, and he asked him about his draft routine. His consisted of a lot of Denny's and Red Lobster. So I'll ask you, what do you remember about your, the whole draft combine, the whole leading up to the draft process?
Yeah, so actually there was no draft combine that didn't exist yet. Really, even the visits to visiting teams, I think I took one visit to Cleveland. The difference back then, Tyler, was we played 4 years. So the teams, they got to see a long, games and practices. So they had all the information they needed. So a lot of those things weren't informed as of that time. Charles was 84, draft, I was 85. Yeah, so we went out, we played our college careers. Michael, Charles, they played 3, but between 3 and 4 years, that's a long, a bunch of games for these NBA teams to get their scout reports done.
Right.
So very different in that respect. And then 85 was the first lottery. So that was, the first time the lottery came into play was in 1985. 84, I do remember I was on that Olympic team. I think maybe 8 or 9 guys from that team went in the first round. So I was very familiar with that, and I went back to school, and in 1985 wound up coming out in that draft.
As I said, did you think about coming out in 84 with a lot of those guys making the leap that year before?
Not really. There wasn't that pull, and there wasn't that talk about always leaving school. It was just the way it was. Ralph Sampson was the player of the year as a freshman. He stayed 4 years.
Right.
So that was just the way things were. College was a good situation. And I just think that's what people did. They just kind of stayed a little bit longer. I think the NBA liked it that way because you got a more mature player. You got more background and information on that player by staying in college. And then just gradually that turned, I think, as the money increased and the way they did the salary scales, so that they started looking at it from a business standpoint, the sooner I can get to that second contract, get that clock started. So
definitely,
I think when they put in that rookie scale, that changed from a business standpoint, the decision making.
So the first year of the lottery, 85, that was Patrick Ewing was the first pick, correct? So
yes.
You were a New York guy, St. John's guy. Were you hoping? Did you want to stay a Knick? Were you just kind of hoping whoever wants me? What were you looking at? Because the lottery being your first year, you're like, "What? That's just my luck. This comes out now."
Yeah. So that was obviously, so it was new for everybody. So kind of like, what the hell's going on here? So they're just gonna pick ping pong balls, and that's why I go. Like, what's up with that?
Right.
But yeah, and I was a New York kid, born and raised in Brooklyn, stayed home for school. So I really did not plan on leaving New York.
Right.
I had a great situation at St. John's. I loved playing for Coach Carnesecca. I had great teammates. So there was, part of me just wanted to stay home. But when that ball, when that cold ball went to the Knicks, and they got Patrick Ewing.
Yep.
I mean, you look at the difference. I think I was the first non-front court player picked.
Really?
So it was
Okay.
Patrick, Wayman Tisdale, Benoit Benjamin, Keith Lee, I think Joe Klein, like that. All big guys were selected, which this day and age that's probably almost reversed. So everyone goes for guards and wings now. But yeah, so I mean that's kind of the history of the lottery. That's where it started, and I always kid out loud. I was on a Zoom with him last week for his birthday, and I said, he got the booby prize, man. Because at that time too, the lottery was 7 teams. It wasn't 15. It was the last 7 teams was in that initial lottery, and I was the 7th pick, so I was the booby prize, and we just made it work for each other.
I was gonna ask. I think you may have answered it. Like now we see. Like the 3 and D, that's what people are looking for in the draft. And I guess back then you were just looking for a center, like that big man is what you were looking for, really.
Yeah, I mean, back then it was a traditional league still. And look, to me, there's still a place for big guys. This is not.
Definitely.
I think Houston has proved that.
Yep.
They tried it. I think it's a good wrinkle to a team, and it's a good wrinkle on how to play the game. But to play it for a full season into the playoffs, you can't just play small. It's not the way it's, that's not going to win. And I love small ball more than anybody.
Right.
But it's more of a change up as opposed to a steady diet. But the game has evolved. It has, and the biggest difference is the 3-point shot and the use of the usage rate of it. Again, I was a shooter. I love the 3-point shot, but I still believe to win, you got to get good shots.
Right.
So it's not shot.
No matter where they're at.
Yeah. Not shot takers, it's shot makers. It's not hockey. It's not shots on goal. It's the ones that go in that count. Fortunately, I've been around the Warriors pretty much my whole life, and just watching, those 5 years where they were so great and dynastic. Yeah, they shot a lot of threes, but they shot high quality threes. They worked to get open. They moved the ball. They set screens. They did all the fundamental basketball things that help you win. Naturally with Steph and Clay, they're so great, but it kind of gets overlooked that they were a very fundamentally sound basketball team.
Right.
I think James Wiseman went 2 in this draft. There's a place for big players. There is. There's a reason they're effective, and a lot is screening, being a lob threat to open up open shots, so you can shoot a high percentage.
I was glad you mentioned you were a shooter. You were career 51% from the field, 38 from 3, 87% from free throw. That's close to 50, 40, 90, which is kind of a thing now. Guys, you get accomplished or you're noticed if you hit that. Was that a thing back then, or you were just trying to take good shots like you were saying?
Yeah, I was taught, again, growing up through high school and especially in college, playing for Lou Carnesecca, who he's a Hall of Fame coach. He also coached in the ABA, so he had a lot of professional training and professional mind. He was a very close friend with Joe Lapchick, who was the coach of the Knicks, Frank McGuire, who coached the Philadelphia Warriors. So these were the people that influenced him. So I was taught the pro game, but when we were in college, Patrick and Mike, all those guys, there was no 3-point line, no shot clock. That's a huge difference. It's almost a different sport.
Yeah. It feels like night and day almost. Yeah.
Well, but there are some good things that come from that. And you mentioned shot selection. So when there's no shot clock, there's no rush to get a shot up, which means from a coaching standpoint, you're trying to get the best shot every possession. Now, that could lead to some boring basketball because you may overdo it. But from a player standpoint, you're trained to get the shot that you want.
Right.
And put the defense. So from an offense, I'm going to tell you what I'm doing. Right? Offensive. I'm an offensive person. So, the shot clock is always the balance of getting a good quick shot. And then that's where shot selection comes into play. Being able to, I'll just go back to Steph and Clay, the way they work to get open to get good shots, not just stand still and wait for the ball and then go off the dribble and shoot contested shots. If you do that all game, all your career, your percentages are going to go down.
Right.
It gets back to shot selection. So yeah, I was taught that as a young age. Every time I shot the ball, it should have been a shot I was supposed to make, not just shooting, not taking
Not
10
just wanted to
shots.
get one up.
Yeah, not take 10 shots just for the heck of it. And then I'll be,
Right.
So yeah, I was taught the game that way. The game was different. But if you look at the really, really successful players and teams, they still do that. There's a way to do that within 24 seconds, obviously.
Now I looked at 2 threes a game. Now you probably would have taken like 10 threes a game. Is that something you would have liked? Like, of course, you not just 10 threes to take them, but good shots. But would you have liked kind of that freedom? Like, hey, if you have an open shot, not only take it, but it should probably be a 3-pointer if you're as good a shooter as yourself.
Yeah, I often wonder why we didn't shoot more threes. I just can't
understand.
Like I don't like what was I don't understand.
It's an extra point. Look.
Yep, and we had guys that could shoot them, but again, it evolved to where it is now. It didn't happen overnight.
Definitely,
there was still an emphasis on playing inside out. Part of the game that's kind of disappeared, which was a big focal point, is playing inside to draw fouls. Not only to get to the free throw line because it's free throws, right? You're supposed to shoot their free points. You also put the other teams, hopefully, ideally, one of their better players in foul trouble. So that's kind of gone away. We don't do as much targeting. That was a big focal point back in the day. Yeah, but I definitely wish, and I played for Don Nelson, who was probably the most forward-thinking guy.
I'd say one of the originators of small ball.
And we had the freedom to do it, but it almost wasn't comfortable to go out there and shoot. I think a few nights I shot 7 or 8, and I almost felt like
it didn't feel right.
Yeah, like I'm just kind of like chucking these things up there. You know what I mean? Again, we always were taught, even with Nelly. Nelly had specific guys. Like if you didn't shoot over 36 or 7, you couldn't shoot them in the game. But you couldn't. It was like you weren't allowed to. So you had to get your percentages. Your percentage had to be at a certain point to be able to shoot in the game. And then ideally, we like to shoot them in transition. We like to shoot them off dribble penetration, where you collapse the defense and kick out, so the draw and kick game. Or if you threw it down the post and they doubled, then it was a full rotation. So swing, corner 3. So that was kind of where those shots came from. I mean, Tim Hardaway Sr., he had the green light to shoot off the dribble because he was just so
I bet he did, yeah.
But most guys, if you had to take dribbles to get your shot off and the defense was contesting, that was a no-go.
Right.
That was sit down, dude. Like, come on, man. But these guys practice them, and then so to their credit, they become, a lot of these guys are bad shot makers technically, right? So you're like, man, it's a contested shot, but these guys make them. They become acceptable shots, and the reason they're accepted is because you make them. You made them at a high percentage. If you're shooting over 36, 37%, you got to live with it.
Yeah, but as you mentioned, you pretty much Warrior all your life. You played for him. You worked in the front office some, and now you're still doing like pre and post game stuff. You covered the draft for him, if I'm correct, last night.
Yep.
So, what did you make of the Warriors draft? Just going that number 2 pick. There's a lot of talk. Were they going to trade it? Were they going to move back? They kept it to James Wiseman, big man out of Memphis.
Yeah, I give the Warriors organization, Bob Myers, Steve Kerr, Joe Lacob, I give him an A+. I mean, James Wiseman, to me, for this day and age, if you were to, sculpt a center for the 2020 draft, athletically, his body, quickness, length, standing reach, that would be him. Yep. And it's a glaring need for them. Steve Kerr is a very innovative, free-flowing, just a beautiful rhythm to their offensive game. But he also has a lot of traditional, fundamental basketball principles that they play by. Obviously, being influenced by Phil Jackson and Greg Popovich. So there's a lot of old school fundamentals with some new school flair to it. But I think he's a perfect fit, a huge need. And I think if he would have played, 15 to 20 college games, he would have been the, consensus #1 pick by far.
Yeah.
Physically, you see the resemblance kind of to David Robinson, Chris Bosh, that type of player. Physically, right? He's that type of body, that kind of athletic skill. We talked to Penny Hardaway last night, locally, after the draft, and raves about his work ethic, his dedication, his discipline, IQ, decision making on and off the court. So this guy, for me, for the Warriors to get him and adding to this already, championship team. Obviously, we got the Clay situation. That's that's a big downer and devastating news.
Yeah.
But he's gonna come back. So in the meantime, this kid's gonna blossom. I think you talk about again 2020. Yeah. So I think on arrival, James Wiseman is gonna be able to defend the rim, be a rim protector. He's probably gonna be the fastest and big in the league. He's got
I'll say he should get a lot of easy lobs, easy alley oops.
And that's like tonight. He could do that tonight.
Yep.
And over time, he's got a nice looking shot. He shoots nice free throw. And over time, when there's no rush, slowly but surely, he'll stop, increasing his range. I think over time, you'll see him shoot an NBA three. So, he's 19 years old. So to be able to get him that talent and to be able to plug him in right away, and also as Steph, Clay, and Draymond move on in their careers, being schooled by them and watching their daily habits, 3-4 years, he could be the face of the franchise.
Good.
He could be the face of the league. That could be like the new 7'1", 3-point shooting, dunk, alley-oop catching, shot blocking big,
Like you mentioned, in 5 years, he'll be 24, 25 years, like just really starting to figure out what he's even going to be as a player. So
see, a lot
him
of
growing in that culture.
A lot of people forget, or he's just not mentioned because he's so humble, is how great David Robinson was. This is one of the all-time greats, on and off the court. By the way, the guy's maybe more impressive off the court than on the court. But he put up 70 in a game. He could have led the league in scoring if he wanted to. He was all about the team. So without putting undue expectations, picture David Robinson trailing the break and shooting threes. Add that to all the other stuff he did. That's pretty damn good.
Yeah, it ain't too bad. Now, as you mentioned, and it is a shame, we did see it confirmed that Klay Thompson has tore his Achilles, so he'll be out. Did you think that was going to change the draft in any way? Like, did you think they might go, like maybe they wanted Wiseman before with Klay out, maybe they go LaMelo, maybe they go Okoro, or a wing player, guard wing?
Yeah, I think, and look, I'm actually watching NBA TV now. Bob Mize is on speaking now, but I think if the #1 guy wasn't there, I'm sure they considered contingency plans, moving back. I think they had those things in place anyway. Picking #2, I'm sure they had 2 players they loved.
Yeah,
so they were going to get one of them. So, and I don't think you change your whole draft board due to an injury, although it's devastating. I mean, probably more so for Klay first and foremost.
Yeah.
For the organization, of course, right? But even the fans, Klay's just one of the guys. I think he's loved by everybody.
I was gonna say even if he's killed your team with 8 or 9 threes, you can't hate Klay Thompson.
Well, you love to watch him, and then if you know his personality. He's just the easygoing Southern California kid,
Yeah.
He skateboards to the game, drops 60, and walks out of the arena with his dog, Rocco. I mean, he's just,
right.
Not only everyone loves Klay, everyone wants to be Klay.
Yeah.
So devastating news, but he will get healthy. Last night I was on and it's devastating. I was driving over to the studio. I'm like, what? I hear Klay Thompson. I'm like, what are you talking about Klay Thompson for? Like, this is the draft. And I'm like, what? This can't be true. So as a fan, I know him a little bit, and I love watching him. I love everything he stands for. There's that shock and that devastation. But here we are today. He will heal. He's going to heal. Now it's like in between this time. It's another year with the timing of it's horrible.
Yeah.
First and foremost, he's got to get his head wrapped around this another long journey. You know, he just
I'll tell
came
you,
off
one more rehab. Yeah.
Well, came off, you know, a year of rehab in the ACL, and I heard all great reports. He was just feeling great. I was really looking forward. I was telling someone last night, it wasn't really if he was back. You knew he was back. It was just the anticipation of seeing this guy
matter of when.
Just drop 60 again and then back on top. This news, you know, puts a damper on a lot of things, but in my mind, being optimistic is the first step to recovery, right? To you know, map out that plan. It's going to take a little while for that to settle in, but now, you know, he will be back. In the meantime, you know, they'll probably add some players, and so it's probably a different expectation now where they are. I still think they're a playoff team, and you know, we'll see who they add in free agency. The funny thing is, free agency starts tomorrow, so it's
so it'll be a wild one.
Yeah, it will.
So who, Warriors aside, who's a team whose draft, like, you like what they did last night?
Well, again, you know, when you talk about, you know, no consensus number one pick, it seemed like the first three, they were slotted months ago and they didn't change. And when you don't have a consensus number one pick, the one thing you usually have is depth. And I noticed that there was a lot of good players in the second round. Back to the Warriors for a second. They picked Nico Mannion at number 48. If you look back in December, he was slotted in some of those mock drafts as number 7 to 10, a lottery pick. So I can guarantee he didn't lose his talent from December to now. So he's another talented player. So there's some really good players in the second round. I think, look, there wasn't a whole lot of trading of pick. There's some, but I think the big names and the guys, you know, top 20 or so, that I, you know, I haven't really, you know, scurried and looked at all because a lot of those trades come out later, right?
Yeah, I'm still shaking out.
You know, from like, you know, top 3 guys, I think they're all going to be good players, and a lot depends on, you know, the organizations they go to and their daily habits. That's what's really going to. So 3-4 years, that's when we'll really find out.
Right.
You know, a kid down number 20, I knew personally because he's a New York kid. Precious Achua went to Miami. Gifted
out of Memphis as well. Yeah,
exactly. From Penny Hardaway's team. Hardworking kid, got the pro attitude, has his work. He's got pro work habits. I've watched him since he was 13 or 14. At number 20, that's a heck of a pick and a perfect situation for him. You know, the guys up top there, Abdija looks like he's a heck of a player. He looks like a natural, just an instinctive basketball player, right? Denny, Okoro from Auburn, you know, he's a great defender, got that physical body. So the one thing these young kids, they're coming in, they look physically ready.
Yeah.
You know, they're training. Yeah, their training programs are much advanced. And then it's just about, you know, being sponges, learning from your vets.
Right.
You know, and I think a lot of these kids are advanced in that area too. You know, so it's an exciting time for the NBA. It's always exciting to see these young kids have their dreams come true, you know, do their press conferences. And I always say, and then we go to the court. That's where that's where it really matters, you know.
Right.
Press conferences are cool, you know, and all the excitement's great. And then we get back to that practice gym. And then we see that's where you got to prove yourself. And then it's deliver and then deliver each and every day. I always go back to the kids that really love to play. And their goal is to max out their ability.
Right.
And that, you know, so you have this nice, I want to be an all-star. I want to be a world champion. I want whatever. Okay, that's awesome to have that vision. Now, let's get that piece of paper, and what do we got to do on a daily basis?
Right. How do we get there?
You know, getting those 8, 9, 10 hours of sleep. Make sure you get up, have, you know, the right meal before you work out. Make sure you all those things that, you know, make a pro. And like I said, I think these kids are advanced in that area. I've coached in college for 4 years. They've learned from the people in front of them, and they watch what these great players do. Probably LeBron being the best example of taking care of his body, being dedicated. I mean, that's what he's done is just off the charts.
Yeah.
I do think people look up to him and they want to know, how does this guy do this? And so I think he set a tremendous example of, dedicating everything, all your resources, all your energy to being the best, and it's worth it. Let's face it.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can carve out a nice career in this league, it's well worth it.
Yeah, definitely. So one of the things you mentioned earlier about listening to your veterans as a young guy, when you came into the league, who were some of your veterans? Who were your older guys?
Yeah, when I first came to the Warriors, so that was 85, and we talked about, so they were in a lot of, they had the worst record in leagues. They were supposed to get the first pick by record.
Mm-hmm.
And they got the 7th pick. But when I came here, Sleepy Floyd, Purvis Short, Jeff Houston was a New York guy who took me under his wing, did help me out a lot. Greg Ballard.
Okay.
Classy guy. He came in as a free agent. He was a really good guy. Treated me well. So I had decent vets. Again, it's funny how you bring up how long ago that was. I remember. I'm looking at Bob Myers out here in front of this Chase Center, this beautiful arena with the practice facility built inside. We used to practice. we used to get a call, not because there were no cell phones. You get a call, like the game would end, and they go, "We'll call you in the morning and tell you where we're going to practice." So it would either be, San Leandro Boys Club, sometimes Pacific High School, sometimes the Mormon Temple. So
it might have been a different place every day.
No doubt. Oh, it was a different place every day. Not maybe, it was. So.
Okay, on the flip side of that, you had a long career. At the end of your career, who were some of the younger guys? Who were some of the rookies that you took under your wing, that you tried to be that guy for?
Yeah, so first and foremost, Tim and Mitch. Mitch and Tim. Mitch came first. Again, there was a little bit of, what do they call it? Rookie hazing, whatever. Go get my news, go get my newspaper, go get my coffee. That they were still doing. I thought it was nonsense and ridiculous.
So you're not a hazing guy?
No, I was like, dude, these are my teammates.
Right.
So, and not that it had a huge impact. I didn't, but I just thought it was stupid. So Mitch became my boy, man. Not only was a great player, he was a great dude. So he wasn't a rookie. This guy's like number 5 pick. He's big time, and that's the way I treated him. And then his play backed it up, and Tim came the next year, and me and Mitch did the same thing to Tim. We just brought him in, and again, great player. His game was way beyond rookie status anyway.
Right.
So, so Mitch and Tim, we had a trade. And look, I all guys that came in here, not only were they good guys, but you need them to succeed.
Right.
So you need to welcome them, teach them.
Ideally, yeah.
Well, not only for their good, for your good too. Like every time a guy came in, this guy's really good. He can help me. So we had Billy Owens, we had Victor Alexander, Chris Gatlin. Our team went from, when I first got here, very old, and then Nelly came and the whole roster was blown up. So it just changed overnight. So we started bringing in young guys. Chris Webber came here as a rookie, and I had played against him. The Dream Team played that select team, so I had to watch. I had been in the gym with this guy, was incredibly gifted. So I'm like, wow, this guy. And I was getting on in my career, the 92. Now I'm 7-8 years in the league. I'm like, this guy can really help me.
Right.
And then he was here a year, moved on. So I went through a lot of young guys. Latrell Sprewell came through. He was a great young talent. Great guy. And I used to talk to Spree about what we were talking about. Spree was just he was like the new wave 2 guard, like the long 6'6", long arms, and just can run all day and a little bit raw basketball skill wise. But but he became an all-star player. And I remember early on his first year or two, I'd say, Spree, like, if you just eliminate 3 or 4 or 5 bad shots, instead of going 7 for 21, now you're 7 for 14, 7 for 15, and those bad shots, maybe they're an extra pass to your teammate, things like that. So, and that's what I was taught from my coaches, but also the really good teammates I had, they did that for me.
Right.
And that's kind of always been my philosophy is follow the winners, follow the classy guys, man. With the guys that really helped you, pass that on. And the stuff that really didn't work for you, leave that alone. So pretty basic philosophy there.
Check in with Bridget here. I think we've got a couple questions from the viewers. We'll see what we have here. First question is from Billy Goodwin. He says, "Hey Mo," he said you wouldn't shoot threes. What do you think about that?
Do you know who Billy Goodwin is?
Is that a former teammate?
Yeah. So you talk about guys that took me under their wing in the NBA. Billy Goodwin was the first guy to take me under his wing at college.
Okay.
And the first guy during games would boost my confidence. And Billy, if you're listening, if we're playing Syracuse or we're playing, he'd be like, "Mo, they can't guard you. They can't guard you." And he was pumping me up. So he was my first vet.
Okay.
That took
even in college.
That boosted my confidence and made me a better player. Because this guy, see, now if he came out, he'd be a lottery pick yesterday. 6'5", all around game, 15 points, 6 boards, 6 assists. The best.
Like fill the box
that's,
score.
That's my brother, dude. And I would be shooting more threes, Billy. Because that actually has become a job. Back in the day, you had guys who could shoot and guys who could play. If you were just a shooter, you're a shooter. That didn't mean you could play.
Right.
It's kind of like the middle reliever in pitching, right? You used to have a starter and a closer.
Right.
Now that was a middle reliever. That wasn't always a job. They've carved out a new job where you could actually stand in the corner 3 and just shoot balls.
Right.
It's like a new job. It's a beautiful thing.
I would say it would have been right up your alley.
Yeah, even right now at 57, man.
Hit
Billy,
a couple
I love you,
corner
bro.
threes.
Billy Goodwin, man. That's my guy.
See, got another question from Whack Human Being. He says, question for Chris. In this day and age, do you think playing college basketball in New York City still has appeal to recruits?
That's a good question. I do. There's definitely an appeal. There's always, look, Shamari Pines. I was texting with Shamari yesterday. It's for a select person. Now, back in the day, with Billy Goodwin and Kevin Williams and David Russell and Bob Kelly and Bill Wennington and Walter Berry and Mark Jackson and Shelton Jones, we were all new. We all stayed home.
Right.
It's changed though. The world is a smaller place now. These kids, I talked about it earlier. When I was, getting drafted, I'd been to California twice in my life. Once for the Olympics, once to receive the Wooden Award. We didn't travel like these kids do. They go all over the world. So by the time they're in high school,
they've been everywhere.
It's much easier for them. They switch teams. It's just the way things are. So, and getting back to St. John's, I'm sure that they're asking about recruiting at St. John's. Huge advantage in the early, when I played with Billy Goodwin, 1983, we won the Big East Championship. Billy Goodwin's on the cover of Sports Illustrated. ESPN started in 1979. The first contract they did was with the Big East.
Okay.
So the Big East Conference was the first college conference to have a national TV contract. Yeah, so when I came to Golden State in 1985, all the kids out here knew who I was
because
they were watching Big Monday right after school. They were running home at 4:30 to catch that Big East game. So all of a sudden you saw Syracuse, Georgetown. I was recently with Gary Payton wanted to play at St. John's. He was recruiting them. That was where he wanted to go to school because he was out here in Oakland watching. They like, man, I want to be Pearl Washington. I want to go to Georgetown, and it was amazing. Now you can get every conference all the time
Right.
on TV. So that advantage has gone away. That's one less thing you have, right? But there's no place like New York. There's just not. But it's for a select kid, right?
Right. Not
St.
for
John's.
everybody.
It's funny. Towards the end of Coach Carnesecca's career, they were saying he doesn't recruit nationally. That could be a problem. So now here we are 40 years later saying they don't recruit locally.
Right.
So
it always cycles. Yeah.
Well, the landscape has changed. Ideally, yeah, you get all New York kids. That's not the fact. And kids don't stay in high school in the city much. They go to prep school. So again, the landscape
goes across state lines. Yeah, for high school.
Yeah,
now.
Landscape has changed, but it's always, like I said, like Shamari Pons. That's a Brooklyn kid. He wanted to stay home, play in front of his family. He had an incredible 3 years there. So I know some kids, it's not built for everybody, but the select guy, it's a great place to play. You get to play in the Garden. You get the notoriety. But I tell you what, when 81 through 85, it was rocking.
Yeah.
It was rocking. There was no place better to play than back then. I know that.
I was gonna say, you still see it from time to time now. When Kimba in the tournament, or I feel like when LeBron or when Kobe every once in a while would come in and heat the Garden up.
Yeah, but even like I said, the Big East right now, as we speak, it's a great conference. They got great rivalries. It's all basketball. They got some of the original teams and the teams that they came in from the Midwest. Butler, Creighton, Marquette, DePaul. They're all really
solid
good
programs. Yeah,
no, it's really good. It is. It's. I was pleasantly surprised at the level of play and the competition. And the one thing we're going to miss, though, the one thing that's really good is the crowd. They get great crowds on the road, so that's going to be a big difference.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see. Next question, we got one from Maddie Buckets here. Maddie says, "Did the Celtics get the best shooter in the draft?" I'm guessing Aaron Nesmith. They also got was it Peyton Pritchard, but
Nesmith
yeah.
from Vanderbilt, played for Jerry Stackhouse.
Jerry Stackhouse, yep.
Yeah, I think by far the best shooter in the draft. That's consensus, I think, and I love the way Brad Stevens runs that offense. I think he'd be a perfect fit. And Peyton Pritchard, I watched him a bunch in the Pac-12. The ultimate competitor. I mean, the guy, he's a winner, and I think he's one of those guys. He just makes the team better. He's just one of those guys that just his energy, his effort, and his dedication, all those things. And he's proven it. He makes big shots, and every time you underestimate him, he answers the bell.
The question here is from Idris. It said, "Chris, did you ever think in a million years that the team would transform into what is now, looking back at the infamous halftime booing of ownership, and now where they are at now, 3 championships later?" So did you ever think they would go from A to B?
No, I can't say I saw that 5-year domination dynasty coming, but I always felt this was the place. I really did. I just couldn't get anyone to listen to me. As a player, I loved playing here. I mean, back in the day, in the middle of my career, I mean, it was the ideal situation. You play out here in California, the Bay Area. It's an incredible place to live. I was spending my summers on Long Island, training like crazy, and then come like late September when it started getting cold, I'd fly back out here,
come back west,
and get another 3 months of summer before, So I always felt like, man, people don't understand how great it is here. And then, what happened was with that ownership change, Silicon Valley, they just there was more awareness of what was happening, and of course, you always need some divine intervention. Steph Curry falls down. You draft Klay Thompson. My guy Mark Jackson comes in and does a great job turning everything around pretty much. Insisting that Draymond Green is a big time player. Yeah. So that night that question referring to was my jersey retirement. Joe Lacob. It was weird timing because they were struggling at the time, and I think they just traded Monte Ellis to Milwaukee for Andrew Bogut, who was injured. Right, wound up being a genius move, but it was maybe the next game after that, and so the fans got out there. It was kind of a. But I will say this: everyone always says your night was ruined. I said it wasn't ruined. We had a great night.
Right.
If nothing else, though, one of the most memorable jersey retirements of all time. And not because it was my jersey, just because of what went on around
it. But people will never forget that one, though.
But tell you what, Joe Lacob, he hung 3 banners, dude. And he said it that night. He said, look up there, that's a lonely banner. We're going to get some more. And everyone thought he was out of his mind. You know what? He put 3 up.
He backed it up, yeah.
Yeah.
See, I think we got one comment here from Uncle Swisher. He says, bring back Pros versus Joes, Chris.
That was fun. That's a good idea. What we should do, is that Joe?
So,
Uncle Swisher.
Uncle Swisher asked it.
At this point in time, but it's more like Pros versus Joes in horse.
Yeah, okay.
Because I ain't trying to, I'm biking, swimming, and golfing, man. I ain't trying to I have my hip done. I got my knee. I'm all good. I ain't trying to
you're all set.
But we can go Pros versus Joes and some horse.
Okay. And horse, would a Joe ever beat you, or Joe would never beat you, would they?
I'm willing to find out. Just hit the ATM on the way into the gym, bro. That's all. I'm willing to find out.
So we got one last question for you. We asked all our legends. We're getting a playlist together. So when you're biking, you're golfing, when you're out there, what do you listen? What's in your ears? It can be old, new, whatever. What do you got? What do you listen to?
Okay, I bike quite a bit. Like Bill Walton, I love my bike.
Okay,
and I bike. There's a state park here called Mount Diablo State Park. It's straight up climb, and I got my nice little Bose speaker on it, and I jam. So if you were behind me riding your bike, you would think I'm some schizophrenic music maniac.
Listen to everything.
No doubt. So I can go from Bruce Springsteen,
okay,
to Shaka Khan,
okay,
to The Doors, to EPMD. Just the alphabet, dude. I'm going 70s rock, Elton John. I'm going all the old school rappers from New York.
I was gonna say it's a New York coming out.
Everything, bro. Yeah, so that's another thing. Back in the day with Billy Goodwin, I remember I played up in Harlem with Riverside Church. I used to meet the van on 125th Street and 2nd Avenue. That's where I would meet the van to go play all these games. I played 3 or 4 games throughout the city on a Saturday. And back then, my teammates were coming into the van with their little boxes and their cassette tapes. And I'm hearing this music. I'm like, because it wasn't on the radio yet.
Right.
I'm going back to Brooklyn. Dude, you got to hear this music, man. That stuff is insane, dude. This is sick. Sugar Hill Gang and Curtis Blow.
Some of the original stuff.
Old school, yeah, man. I remember hearing. I'm like, and we would play these games in the park, and they'd all have the boxes jamming the music. I'm like, man, that was like legendary, dude.
Get those added. That'll do it today. Thank you for joining us, Chris. Thank you for taking a little time out of your day with us.
My pleasure. Good job. Appreciate it.
Of course. Appreciate you. We'll talk to you soon, Chris.
Will do. Okay. Be well.
You too. That'll do it for this week's Legends Live. As you know, we have new episodes live every Thursday here at 5 p.m. Eastern on the NBA Alumni Twitter page, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. I'd like to remind viewers you can watch replays of any episode at legendsofbasketball.com/legendslive. You can catch the audio replay to our conversations on Apple Podcasts or Spotify by searching for Legends Studio. That'll do it for this week. We will catch you next Thursday.